Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to one of my videos. I greatly appreciate your time, your effort, your support to join in with the videos that I have posted on my channel. And I thank you all for giving me the thumbs up, giving me the thumbs down, any kind of feedback that you would love to give and share, which can only help me to produce more and better content material. I would greatly appreciate it. So with that being said, thank you guys again for joining in today for one of my videos. Today we're going to talk about boundaries. And yesterday, if you watched my video previously, I shared with you about boundaries and why we need to have them. What is a boundary, right? And when you think about it, what comes to your mind? So today we're going to talk a little bit more about making personal boundaries, making sure that you have those boundaries that's going to help you to be able to be respected from other people, how you're going to treat other people, and also how people are going to treat you. So these are some of the things that we're going to talk about today in today's video, okay? So if you're watching my video, please know that my videos are going to be very informative. It's like I'm actually talking to you, right? And I'm sharing this information with you. Most times I'm not reading anything off of a teleprompter or anything. I'm just kind of going with the flow of what I'm saying. Today, I'm actually going to look at an actual quote that I found, and I think is very appropriate as to what we're talking about today, okay? So I'm going to share this with you. This is what really helped me to kind of understand that most times people don't really know what boundaries are and don't know how important boundaries are to have in our lives, right? And how every day we are responding to some form of a boundary that's out there that we're just by habit, we're just automatically doing that. But when it comes to our personal life, where we're in relationships with people, we think we shouldn't have boundaries, right? That's very, very untrue, okay? So let me just share this with you. If you're offended by boundaries, then you're probably one of the reasons I need them. Okay, now this is by a doctor, Dr. Steve Maraboli. He wrote this quote. Now, the reason that this quote brought attention to me or stood out to me, I want to say, is because when I read it, it's like, okay, so why would somebody get offended because you have boundaries in place? They're not upset with the government because the government has boundaries. They're not upset with the police because we can't just speed and do whatever we want to do. So those are boundaries. When we go to school, we're in class, we have to follow rules, right? So we can't just do whatever it is that we want to do. So why would that be any different when it comes to in a relationship? But that is the key, because that is what causes individuals to be offended. They feel a certain kind of way because somebody has boundaries in place, and they don't have complete access to that person. Why don't I have access to that person the way I want to? Well, because I have boundaries up. That's why you can't have access to me in that way. So what I want to share with you all today is the importance of having these boundaries in place. Okay, so now if you followed the video the other day, then you know that when we talk about boundaries, I mentioned that boundaries are barriers. Okay, they're limits that are in place. It's a shield that's in place. It's something to protect you. Okay, there's almost like an invisible wall that's there. There's a line that the individuals can't cross, or maybe you can't cross in this way, okay? And when we say you can't cross, it's just basically saying, out of respect, I'm not going to say this, or I'm not going to do that to that person. That's what that invisible line means, okay? Or a threshold, you may want to kind of look at it as a threshold, or a perimeter, okay? There's a perimeter around you of how you're going to allow individuals to treat you, how you're going to allow individuals to talk to you. How are you going to allow individuals to handle you in conversations or just with touching you, right? Do you have your personal boundaries to say, you can't touch me that way? You can't, respond to me. I'm not going to respond to you in that way. I'm not going to allow you to just do whatever you want to do with me, right? You can't call me after a certain time unless we've already talked about it. So you have these boundaries in place. And they're there, they're there to protect you. They're there to help people to treat you the way you want to be treated, to be respected, to be loved, to be cared for, to know how to say and what not to say to you. Same thing with you, right? But more importantly, these boundaries are in place in order to help you to not feel guilty about taking your personal time, for you to have your own personal space, right? For you to have your own quality time, your own self-care, love time that you're going to share within yourself and do things that you want to do. So we all have boundaries. And when you think about, like, if you're dating somebody and this person goes to the gym 3 or 4 days a week, that's a boundary for them. They're not going to change, That's a routine that they put in place. That is an invisible boundary for you to say, well, so-and-so's going to be at the gym for 3 days, so I know I can't call him during this time. I know I can't bother him or her during this time. I can't ask them to go, or I shouldn't ask them to go outside of doing something different because this is their time, right? That is an invisible boundary that's in place between you and that individual that you already know is there. I know I can't, invade that person's space during this particular time. So there are boundaries that are there. There are healthy boundaries that are in place. And we have to acknowledge those and not look at it like it's a negative because we know that so-and-so is working from 8 to 5 and I can't call them. Okay, that's an automatic boundary, right? So when we look at boundaries, don't just look at it in a small sense, look at it in a broad way. Okay, there's invisible boundaries that are in place that we know we cannot cross because of whatever that situation is. The person's at work, the person's going to the gym. This is a time when they're studying. Okay, so I can't bother them when they're studying. That's a personal boundary, right? That's a boundary for that individual, but it's more for you because they've already said, this is what I'm going to be doing from this time to this time. Okay, and on your end, you're saying, okay, well, that's a invisible boundary. I know I can't bother that person during that time. So do you kind of get where I'm going with this, where there's boundaries that are in place already in relationships? When we get into that relationship with that individual, those boundaries are already there. Okay, those limits, those barriers, those the lines that we know that we can't cross, those are already there. Thresholds, those are already in place. But when we get into these relationships and we start bringing our own boundaries into place, if that individual is not respecting your boundaries, but they want you to respect theirs, that is total unequally yoked right there. Okay, there is no equality in that relationship. If they want you to respect their boundaries, but they don't think that you need to have any, or the ones that you do have, they don't need to respect those, that's a person that doesn't really love you. That's a person that isn't in this relationship for growth, for togetherness, for companionship. This person is only in this relationship for what they can get out of the relationship from you on your end. You're going to be the one making all of the provisions, all of the compromising. They're not going to change anything. So keep that in mind. Okay, that should be one huge key right there for you, huge point right there, or red flag, however you want to say it. If you're in a relationship with someone and they're not respecting your boundaries, but they want you to respect theirs, that is huge red sign right there. Trust me, it is, because that's going to lead to more issues further down the line if you overlook this in the beginning. Just say, oh, he and she, that's just how they are. I ain't worried about them. I ain't studying them. You know how sometimes we say that, right? But if you overlook that, that's huge. So I'm going to share that with you later on again in another video when we're talking about more of your boundaries within a relationship. Okay, I'm going to share more about that because that is huge. Okay, so you never want to get into a relationship with somebody that cannot respect your boundaries, but they want you to respect theirs. That's totally not acceptable. Okay, that's not a healthy beginning of a relationship. So keep that in mind. Okay, so when we talk about these personal boundaries, and sometimes we get into these where we're uncomfortable with sharing it with people. You don't have to call somebody up and say, hey, I got these boundaries, if you cross this, I'm going to do this. You don't have to do that. When the person do whatever that boundary is that you have, you just gently let them know, I'm sorry, you can't talk to me that way, or no, I'm not going to be available for this week. Or well, why? You always, well, not this week. I have some things I have to do, or I'm studying this week, or I have whatever. I got plans. You don't even have to explain. I have plans. Okay. So when we talk about in terms of your boundaries, get them in place. Sit back and figure out, what type of boundaries do I need? What have I allowed people to do in my life? And I have not put boundaries in place in order to combat that. How can I make my life different in 2022 than I did in the years before? How can I get a better system going in my life, or get a better, on a better playing field in my life this year than what I've had before? How can I, walk in a better light and have people to respect me better, right? And to not cross over those boundaries. How do I do that? You're going to have to sit down and write them out. What are your boundaries? What are some things that you notice that people take advantage of? That's how you start off with your boundaries. What are some things that you notice that people take advantage of you with? Is it your kindness? Is it your willingness to help? Is it your ability to always be there, be accessible to help somebody? Is it, the fact that you're so giving, so caring, you're got a lot of patience? What is it that you feel that people are taking advantage of? And once you figure that out, write them on 2 sheets of paper, on the same paper, fold it in half. On one side, write down what you think people are taking advantage of you for. On the other side, how can you make some changes? Okay. And that's how you're going to set up as far as your boundaries and getting your boundaries in place. And then the most important part is you have to enforce them. So after you write them down and figure out what they are, then you have to start putting them into place. And you have to say, okay, so these are some of the things that I know that I have to do, because if I don't, people are going to continue to keep taking advantage of me. And that's not what you want. So writing down what those boundaries are, putting them in place, that's another video that we're going to talk about, okay? So now, with that being said, I hope you all have learned so much today about the importance of personal boundaries and how they also affect us in terms of how we treat other people. And we want to treat people the right way, right? So we don't want to treat people wrong and then expect them to be respectful to us. We don't want to treat people wrong and then expect them to treat us with the kindness and the love that we're not willing to give to them. So remember, boundaries, personal boundaries, is going to help you in order to help you to establish a way that you want people to treat you. And then the other boundaries are going to be how you're going to treat other people. Okay. So you know what the golden rule is: treat people how you want to be treated. Okay. And so that should be important. That should be in the forefront of your mind when you're writing down your boundaries, because just like you have boundaries, you want to respect everybody else's boundaries as well. Okay. And with that being said, you guys have a great rest of your day. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And if you see anywhere on my video where you can go ahead and click on there for you to be able to subscribe to my channel, and also you can get notifications of every time that I do another video, that would be absolutely great. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.